Caitlin Clark is the only woman in basketball to ever sign with Wilson Basketball, and she's the only athlete since Michael Jordan to do so.
If we're comparing a Caitlin Clark signature shoe release to anybody not named Michael Jordan, anybody not named LeBron James, you're being extremely disingenuous.
You won't believe what just dropped, basketball fans, and how it's going to totally upend Nike's billion-dollar enterprise. Executives at Nike headquarters are genuinely sweating bullets over this tectonic upheaval. With a valuation of more than $200 billion, you are currently the largest sports brand in the world. And you've just signed what everyone is referring to as the women's basketball equivalent of Michael Jordan. With Caitlin Clark signed to an 8-year, $28 million contract, you are essentially robbing her of her true value. You're sitting there looking like you have the key to printing money for the next 10 years. However, Wilson of all companies, just released an ad that is so flawless and emotionally compelling that it is causing the whole Nike marketing team to reevaluate their own decisions. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 83% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. It's free and only takes a second, but it means the world to us. So, did you subscribe already? Great. Thank you so much for your support. Now, back to the video.
When you strip away the noise and the bright lights, it's just the game you loved as a kid.
Chant of defense by the Sparks fan.
Here's the worst part. Instead of using shoes, they used basketballs. However, the impact is going to alter everything. Allow us to illustrate Nike's current dire situation. Nike has completely collapsed during the past few years. We are discussing a business whose value has decreased by more than $100 billion since 2021. The situation became so dire that individuals were actually demanding the dismissal of their CEO. And you know what? He was forced to resign. Nike was drowning in their own errors, while Adidas was prospering despite dissolving their Yeezy alliance. Nike's third-quarter revenue is predicted to drop by 11.5% to $11 billion. It would be the worst reduction since Nike's 38% drop during the pandemic in the fourth quarter of fiscal 2020, according to statistics gathered by LSG. Nike started an ambitious comeback under Hill. However, according to Morningstar analyst David Schwartz, the sportswear giant won't be able to boost sales with only one or two stylish new looks. It must develop a brand-new franchise, such as a line of goods that generate billions of dollars in sales. Schwartz stated that it requires years. However, Caitlin Clark, the generational talent who appears perhaps once in 10 years, was their savior. In college, this person was twice as well known as Angel Ree, 4 times as well known than the most well-known male athlete. In the history of collegiate basketball, that is completely unheard of. Every big sponsor was throwing money at her when she went pro. She was intended to be the face of the Curry brand by Under Armour. She stayed with Nike because of the way they promoted her in college, even though Adidas was prepared to spend a fortune. Everyone was anticipating the release of her signature shoe, which would permanently alter women's basketball. But this is where things get really crazy. Nike reveals that A.J. Wilson would receive her trademark sneaker first while everyone waits for Caitlin's. Beneath that announcement was a fact that ought to have infuriated every Nike stockholder. According to them, Caitlin's shoe won't be available in stores until 2026 or possibly 2027.
People were even speculating that. But today was the Nike quarterly call, putting to rest any rumors that A, this wasn't a done deal, and B, there are renegotiations at the table. Something that this did clear up as well is looking like Caitlin Clark's shoe was coming in 2026.
As a result, Nike changed its timeline from 3 months to 3 years. There is a real problem here, and it is about to be revealed in the most embarrassing way imaginable. Major media asked why people were upset that Caitlin had a shoe deal when she signed it. The dispute. Even though Clark had not yet participated in a WNBA game, several fans contended that A.A. Wilson ought to have received her shoe before Clark. Here's the problem, though. Fairness is not the focus of business. It has to do with what generates revenue. Tim Duncan was outsold by Allen Iverson in them. Shoes, even if Duncan is a superior player. Nike tried Tim Duncan shoes twice, but both times they were canceled due to low sales. And you know what? Tim Duncan knew business, so he didn't give a damn. Aya Wilson isn't Tim Duncan, though. Nike is actively promoting her by using her in advertisements and billboards. This is the point at when it becomes extremely uncomfortable. She has made several dubious remarks regarding the privilege of white players. When talking about Paige Bueckers, she stated that the player's success was influenced by her luxury, adding that her basketball prowess was practically an afterthought.
If we're comparing a Caitlin Clark signature shoe release to anybody not named Michael Jordan, anybody not named LeBron James, you're being extremely disingenuous. Extremely disingenuous. We can't compare abnormality to normal behaviors. We can't compare the extreme case, the rarest of the rare case, to an average Joe Schmo walking down the street singing do I did it dum diddy do. We can't be doing that. We only compare Clark to Jordan, Clark to James, Clark to Tiger, Clark to Gretzky, Clark to Ali. That's it.
As a result, Nike changed its timeline from 3 months to 3 years. There is a real problem here, and it is about to be revealed in the most embarrassing way imaginable. Major media asked why people were upset that Caitlin had a shoe deal when she signed it. The dispute. Even though Clark had not yet participated in a WNBA game, several fans contended that Aya Wilson ought to have received her shoe before Clark. Here's the problem, though. Fairness is not the focus of business. It has to do with what generates revenue. Tim Duncan was outsold by Allen Iverson in them. Shoes, even if Duncan is a superior player. Nike tried Tim Duncan shoes twice, but both times they were canceled due to low sales. And you know what? Tim Duncan knew business, so he didn't give a damn. Aya Wilson isn't Tim Duncan, though. Nike is actively promoting her by using her in advertisements and billboards. This is the point at when it becomes extremely uncomfortable. She has made several dubious remarks regarding the privilege of white players. When talking about Paige Bueckers, she stated that the player's success was influenced by her luxury, adding that her basketball prowess was practically an afterthought.
She knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point, and also like she's good at basketball, obviously. But like she understands her privilege and like what pushes her over the top in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you.
The Olympic roster for Team USA did not include Caitlin. The official explanation for her lack of earnings. When Christian Laettner was added to the 1992 Olympic Dream Squad, he had no NBA experience. However, Caitlin Clark will not be participating in this. When Diana Taurasi joined the 2004 Olympic squad as a WNBA rookie, her stats were comparable to Clark's. Nevertheless, Caitlin Clark is still inadequate 20 years later. However, as a rookie, she went on to dominate, leading all rookies in several categories, making the first team All-WNBA, placing fourth in the MVP voting, and turning around WNBA viewership all by himself. Regular WNBA games receive 300,000 viewers, compared to an average of over 1 million. Her first playoff game ticket was more expensive than all the other WNBA playoff games put together. In order to accommodate the large crowds that came to see her, the Washington Mystics had to relocate to the Wizards Arena. Everywhere she played, she broke WNBA attendance records. Eventually, even Team USA acknowledged that it was a mistake to leave her off the squad. However, Nike is still holding back because they are too afraid to release their most marketable athlete. Everything changed after Wilson released their commercial. This isn't your typical advertisement. Nike's subsequent efforts seem amateurish in comparison to this masterwork of emotional storytelling. That lovely message opens the commercial. It's just the game you loved as a child when the bright lights and sounds are removed. Boom. Directly in the fields. Wilson enters the picture and perfectly encapsulates the reason we initially fell in love with basketball, but Nike is crippled by politics and scared to properly market their biggest star. Feet on the hardwood, basketball in hand, guiding you, inspiring you, working on the player you dream to be, because the ball will always bring you back to your favorite place, the commercial goes on. Composed, concentrated, and self-assured. This marketing is brilliant. They're not attempting to negotiate cultural politics or sell shoes. Dreams, nostalgia, and an unadulterated passion for the game are what they are marketing. Nike's player, Caitlin Clark is the embodiment of this ideal message, afraid to provide a proper promotion. Here's why this is so disastrous for Nike, though. Caitlin Clark became the first female basketball player to sign with Wilson, and she is the only athlete to have this kind of collaboration with them since Michael Jordan. Take a moment to consider that. She is being included in the same discussion as MJ. Nike's marketing team will be plagued by the catchphrase Caitlin, always basketball for years to come. Wilson just positioned themselves as the genuine basketball brand that prioritizes the game over anything else, while Nike is sitting on their hands worrying about social media reaction. Additionally, the basketballs themselves are messages rather than merely goods. For months, Wilson's crew studied every aspect of Caitlin, including her interests, favorite color, and what she would be like if she weren't a basketball star. They even kept an eye on her dress choices and social media accounts. She's being treated like a superstar by them. Nike, meanwhile, views her as a political liability. According to Wilson's senior director of global production, Christopher Rickard, the team started with 50 design concepts and reduced them. The color wasn't always correct. The pattern didn't always work. Sometimes what appeared like a wonderful idea on paper didn't quite transition into reality. The response to the commercial, which debuted alongside a brand new range of basketballs scheduled for distribution on June 23rd, has been overwhelming. Basketball fans are praising Wilson for concentrating on the game rather than getting sucked into cultural politics, calling it the best basketball advertisement in years.
From the sounds of this interview, it seems like she's probably going to make more money overseas in EuroLeague than she did during this WNBA season. The commissioner told her that she could make $700,000 playing in the WNBA.
In the meantime, Nike's quiet on their biggest star in women's basketball is getting louder every day. They're watching Wilson work with their athlete to create the ideal marketing campaign, telling a tale with basketballs that they're too afraid to tell with shoes. This is the result of making business decisions based on fear rather than skill and marketability. Caitlin Clark got a $28 million, 8-year contract with Nike. For someone who has already demonstrated her ability to make a difference like no other women's basketball player in history, this is an incredible deal. However, they are allowing a basketball company to have their lunch because they are so paralyzed by the possible repercussions. The irony is heartbreaking. Athletes who went beyond sports were the foundation of Nike's empire. LeBron James, Tiger Woods, and Michael Jordan. They were more than just outstanding athletes. They were cultural phenomenon that altered our perception of sports marketing. It's the same fabric that makes up Caitlin Clark. However, Nike is too preoccupied with internal politics to see the potential. Wilson, however, sees exactly what they have while they are seated on Wilson. With Caitlin Clark, they do more than simply play hoops. They are making a message about being genuine, prioritizing the game, and appreciating excellence regardless of Twitter's opinion. This is the most terrifying aspect for Nike. This advertisement is flawless marketing, not simply good marketing. Without being mired in controversy, it encapsulates everything that makes Caitlin Clark unique. It honors her passion for the game, her genuineness, and her capacity to motivate the upcoming generation of players. The worth of the production is amazing. You don't consider politics or controversy when you watch this commercial since the message is universal and the emotional impact is indisputable. You consider the reasons for your passion for basketball. That's the power of effective marketing, and Nike ought to have done just that with their biggest star in women's basketball. Rather, they are watching from the sidelines while Wilson demonstrates the process. Both basketball fans and marketing professionals have complimented the commercial, which has been viewed millions of times and shared on all social media platforms. Wilson just demonstrated that everything else falls into place when you concentrate on the proper things: skill, sincerity, and passion for the game. This is a game changer because it reveals Nike's tactics to be cowardly. They are willing to squander the greatest opportunity in women's basketball history because they are so terrified of upsetting some people. Wilson, in the meantime, is cultivating a connection with a generational talent that may yield benefits for many years to come. The entire basketball community is observing and taking notes. Other companies will take over and teach Nike how to properly market their own athletes if they don't. Wilson's first shot was a perfect bullseye. Wilson is busy creating history while Nike is busy with politics, so they better get up quickly. You either step up or get stepped on in business, just as in basketball. Wilson recently demonstrated that they are more adept at the game than the supposed experts, despite the fact that the game has evolved. Nike's greatest nightmare is about to come true, and this is just the beginning. What are your thoughts on this? Please leave a remark below.